There are a considerable number of new people believing they should be defending themselves. From what I have read, for the most part, these people are buying new guns and sticking them away in their closets. Let's look at some concepts if you or someone you know is in this situation. I saw many people giving ill-conceived advice to people new to firearms. Several years ago, I bought a new pistol. It was a Sig Sauer Model 229. I understand a lot of men's wives do not believe in or use guns. This is to your detriment. You should try to encourage your wife to rely on her own self for self-defense. This is not the case of my wife. Whenever I buy a new gun, my wife always says, "Hey, where's mine?" When I bought this Sig Sauer, she said, "Hey, I want one just like that." I told her a gun that would work for my purposes may not be a gun that she would like. I told her she should start looking through gun catalogs and reading as many articles as possible. I told her to make a list of guns that she thought she liked. The next step I recommended was that we go to a gun store which rented pistols. She rented every kind which she thought she might like to buy and extensively tried them out. After she did that, she decided she wanted to buy a Glock 26. I called around to find out which store had the best prices. I found a store that had one available and had a good price. When we went to the store for her to check out a brand new one firsthand, it was a very large store as gun stores go. A salesman came out of the back room with his mouth full of food. My wife said that she wanted to see a Glock 26. The salesman proceeded to tell my wife that women should not own Glocks. He said Glocks were only for men. He told women that they should all buy Smith & Wesson revolvers. He proceeded to pull out a Smith & Wesson revolver and handed it to my wife. My wife had tried out revolvers when she was testing guns. A retired police officer had loaned her his revolver. He had a special trigger job on his revolver and it was easy to use. However, she still did not care for revolvers. After carefully checking that the revolver was empty of any cartridges, my wife asked if she could pull the trigger, and he said yes. The trigger was too heavy for my wife to pull back. The salesman said that was the case with all women he sold revolvers to. He said none of them could easily pull the trigger back. However, he continued to sell all women who came in these revolvers. I asked him how did that work out, selling women revolvers if they could not pull the triggers. He said that they usually just stuck the revolvers in their purse and never used them. Other women returned them because they could not use them. I noted to him that it was interesting he kept selling women guns that none of them could use. My wife insisted that he let her handle a Glock 26. He grunted and groaned and finally pulled one out from the display case. He tried pulling back the slide to check for a cartridge, and he was unable to do so. He said that the Glocks were so difficult to operate that even a man such as him could not operate them. He said if he can't pull the slide back, how in the world could a little woman think they could? He then handed the Glock to my wife, and she could not pull the slide back. I noticed that the slide looked very greasy. That was why both of them could not get a grip on it. I asked him why the slide on the Glock was so greasy. He laughed and said that he had been eating greasy potato chips in the back room before he came out. I asked him would it be possible for him to wipe all that grease off and let her try again. He got a rag out and wiped off the grease. After that, she had no problem pulling the slide back and forth. He reiterated his point that he still would not sell a woman a man's gun. When we had been at gun shows, my wife had asked men about Glocks. I noticed a couple of them also told her Glocks were only for men, not women. After our first gun shop, we went to a second gun shop. This salesman told my wife that women should not own Glocks. This man also insisted that she buy a revolver. The second salesman checked the revolver before he gave it to my wife. My wife never pointed the gun at him while she was looking at However, he kept telling her, "Do not point that gun at me. Do not point that gun at me." She never did point it at him. I noticed that a man came up and looked at the same revolver after my wife. The man did point the revolver at the salesman. However, the salesman never said anything about not pointing it at him. I think there is some sexism in selling guns. I am surprised there are men who have machismo about women owning guns. I have owned guns for more than 40 years. I found it interesting both of the shops talked to me like I had just fallen off the turnip truck. Not once did I ever talk like I was very ignorant of guns. However, they continued to talk to me like I was. I wonder if they presumed I was ignorant by my accompanying someone who they perceived as ignorant, that being a woman. I believe their treatment of women comes from their need to be macho. However, I do not understand why they talk in a condescending manner to someone such as me. Here's an interesting note about the second gun shop. The salesmen wore guns on their hips and gripped their guns while they talked to customers. I have to say I found that a bit intimidating. Unless I felt someone was a threat to me, I would not grip my gun. Obviously, all people coming into the gun shop would not be a threat to them. There are plenty of places that will sell you a gun. Other places will not talk to you in a condescending or sexist manner. Do your homework, rent, and try out various guns. Then do not let someone talk you out of the gun that you feel suits you. If you decided there is a particular gun that suits you, do not let someone sell you a different one. You should proceed to another gun shop.